Bonjour à tous. Alors, on vous remercie d'avoir été aujourd'hui avec nous pour la journée de la Palestine. Alors ici, on remercie le Rabbi Yisroel Dovid Weiss, le Neturei Karta, qui sont anti-zionistes. Thank you all for coming today and standing with us together for Palestine. We really appreciate it a lot, and we thank as well Rabbi Yisroel Dovid Weiss and the Neturei Karta for standing to us today against the Zionist state and standing with the Palestinians and human rights. Thank you a lot for coming. And we will have Rabbi Yisroel Dovid Weiss. He's going to give a speech. Thank you all.
With the help of the Almighty, I pray to the Almighty that He should bestow upon me His truth, His wisdom, that I may be worthy of conveying His message, and so sanctify His name, and inshallah bring peace to the world. Assalamu alaikum. We are gathered here today on the day of infamous day, a year since the Palestinian people gathered together, what was given the name the Great March of Return. People of Gaza gathered together and said enough. They went to the walls, they went to the gates, because they wanted to return to their homes what was rightfully theirs and what was stolen from them by an evil movement, by people masquerading in my religion, in Judaism, and accepted around the world. This occupation has been accepted around the world. And therefore, these downtrodden people picked themselves up and said enough, and went simply standing there and saying, we want to return. And what happened? They were mowed down, they were killed. An atrocity that the world, the skies cry. And yet, around the world, a year passed, and nothing was done about this crime. But in truth, this is not a crime of a year, this is a crime of over 100 years. This movement called Zionism is for over 100 years a movement of atheists, of people who detest God and His religion, yet they have the audacity, the nerve to masquerade in the religion in order to gain support from the Christians around the world and Jews around the world. They dupe the world, they tell the world that the reason they're taking this land is because the Bible gives it to them. And the reason the Palestinian people oppose their taking this land is because they're anti-Semites. How vile, how repulsive, how repugnant, how disgusting is this? When we know, Jewish people know, that we have been for hundreds and hundreds of years living and enjoying the hospitality and the friendship of the Muslim countries and the Arab countries when we were suffering in the Crusades and the Inquisition and so many other times in our history. Up until World War II, Jews were running away from countries, from Europe, and they were embraced and taken in, although we have a distinctly different religion than the Islam. Yet we were embraced, and it wasn't an impediment. We were able to flourish. And the greatest of our sages and rabbis came out of these countries, of the Arab and Muslim countries. Now these Zionists, a movement of a mere 100-odd years, raises their ugly head and declares to the world that the Muslims hate the Jews. This is a crime in and of itself. It's a crime that we cannot stand by silently. We are the children and grandchildren of these many generations of Jews who have been enjoying and thriving because of the Muslim friendship, the Arab friendship. My wife is 14 generations from a great sage, a great Jewish rabbi who's buried in Istanbul. Rabbi Neturei Karta, one of our greatest lights. And he's just one of many, many great sages. People go there today, Jews, to pray. And who's talking about Palestine? In Palestine, when it was under the Ottoman Empire, we were living in the same courtyards. We were babysitting each other's children. There's so many beautiful stories of our coexistence. Has anything changed between these religions? Nothing. What has changed that in the last 70 years or almost 100 years? There is this strife and bloodshed. One thing has changed. A development of a selfish, flawed, evil movement called Zionism. That is the one and only thing that has changed. How could the world be so fooled? How could they really accept this? They aren't such fools. They are our politicians, our leaders. Why are they being silent when they're watching as the Muslims and the Jews are dying for some selfish movement, a nationalist movement called Zionism? This is unacceptable. We are pleading with our politicians. Be truthful. Be truthful to yourselves. Have a conscience. Let's just explain. Judaism is 3,000 years of covenant to be subservient to God. We accepted on Mount Sinai 3,000 years ago to uphold the Torah. Judaism is nothing more than that and nothing less than that, is to be subservient to God and obey His laws. And God says, Mahu rachum afatu teirachum. Just as God is compassionate, you must be compassionate. Thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill. One must show gratitude for good done to them. On top of that, when the Almighty took us into the Holy Land, He stipulated we have to be on a high, very high level of spirituality to be in this Holy Land as a nation. If not, we will be rejected. And 2,000 years ago, there was the destruction of the temples, and we were put under oath by God. God told us we're being dispersed amongst the world nations because we cannot continue to exist in the Holy Land as a nation because of our sins. And God warned us. And these are the prophecies of King Solomon that has been accepted by all Judaism around the world. 3 oaths. One, not to return en masse as a nation to the Holy Land until the Almighty will reveal His glory throughout the world, where all humanity will serve Him in harmony. Not become Jews, but we will all serve God in harmony. But until that day comes, we are not to return and create a nationhood. Secondly, we are not to rebel against nations. And thirdly, not to make any attempt to end exile. Zionism breaches every single one of these oaths because they detest the religion. They ridicule Judaism. On top of that, the Torah, this covenant that we made, is not to steal and not to kill. Zionism is built, the state of Israel is built on stealing and killing. And that is why the rabbinical authorities from day one, the chief rabbi of Palestine, the head of the community that was living, the Jewish community that was living in Palestine for these hundreds of years, pleaded with the United Nations, and I carry this document with me constantly because this is a United Nations document and there are pictures that go with this. And this is the statement of Rabbi Zashinsky of blessed memory in 1947. And I'm quoting, "We furthermore wish to express our definite opposition to a Jewish state in any part of Palestine." And I'll repeat that. "We furthermore wish to express our definite opposition to a Jewish state in any part of Palestine." This was this religious, God-fearing rabbi, the leader community. And since then, our rabbis are being assassinated. Boys and girls are being arrested and beaten because they stand peacefully demonstrating in the streets of Jerusalem, because it's not Canada. Here you can demonstrate. In New York, I've just come. We had, for the Great March, we had Friday demonstrations in Times Square. In London, in Trafalgar Square, my brethren are standing together with the Palestinians and demonstrating. But in the streets of Jerusalem, Jewish blood spills because they're yelling, they're saying nothing more. They're demanding of the world to hear their voices, that they're being oppressed, they're being occupied with the Palestinian people by this illegitimate Zionist state of Israel. They're pleading with the world to hear the voice of Judaism. How dare the world state and claim and accuse the Palestinians of being anti-Semitic? Anti-Semitic is the Zionist state of Israel. Anti-Semitic is the Zionism around the world that creates this rift and hate between Jews and Muslims, that creates this mistrust of the creations of God. Boys and girls are arrested. They refuse to serve in the Israeli army. Why? Because they say we are conscientious objectors. And where is the world? Why are they silent to this? Why are the Zionists traipsing around, killing, arresting boys, children, babies? And the world is silent. If this would happen, God forbid, in Canada, in the United States, in any country of the world, you would have Netanyahu and his henchmen on the first plane and yelling anti-Semitism. Our hearts cry with the people of Palestine. My brethren in Jerusalem and my sisters and brothers from the Jewish faith plead with us every day. We get calls from them. They say, well, our voice is not heard. We have tens of thousands demonstrating in Jerusalem. We have tens of thousands demonstrating in New York in front of the United Nations, and it's never covered. These pictures are never shown. In front of the White House we stand, and the world news does not report this. We cry, we say, we are humiliated. How could they dare do this to the Palestinian people, our brothers and sisters of Palestine? How could they take their lives away? The people of Gaza, this last weekend, 4 people were shot dead. Who's going to remember that? Who's going to remember that every single week people are dying and being murdered? Who's going to remember? Who talks about that? Who talks about Sabra Shaltila? Who talks about the refugee camps that are invisible throughout the Middle East? Go to one of these refugee camps, how they're living in squalor. God bless me that we're able to be in Lebanon and in Jordan and in Gaza, and we saw how they're living. We went to this Zaytun, the Sabuni family, who have murdered a family of 30 people around, were shot dead in one action of the Zionists. And we went a year later. They're living in squalor, freezing in the winter, broiling in the summer, no water. And the world is silent because they're afraid of being accused of being anti-Semites. Because obviously, the Zionist state, this is a religious conflict. How dare they call this a religious conflict? It's a conflict against people who fear God. It's not a religious conflict, it's a conflict against God-fearing people. The Palestinian people and the Jewish people together are suffering at this Satan, under the hands of this Shaitan, of this Satan. How could these brilliant scholars, these think tanks, how much longer buy they into this narrative that it is a rift between Jews and Muslims? But anybody who takes the time and the effort and goes to Jerusalem or comes to New York, right across from Manhattan, the largest community of religious Jews, there's not one single Israeli flag in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, the most religious concentration of religious Jews. Go to London, Stamford Hills, go to Montreal here in the religious community. Yet the world just continues on marching step by step with the Zionists. Why? Apartheid, that narrative, played and played on, and in the United Nations they gave full acceptance to South Africa when they had the apartheid, and Nelson Mandela was called a terrorist, and people were being killed day in and day out. Pure racism. And respectable leaders taught their children that this is correct. Till one day, because of the grassroots, people stood up and said, this cannot go on. And they finally forced their leaders to stop supporting the apartheid. Today you will ask any respectable politician, what do you think about apartheid? Is it acceptable? Of course not. Racism. Nobody could be explained it logically, yet this was ongoing South Africa for how long, how many years? And the ones who opposed it were arrested and put in prison. That stopped, thank God. Zionism must stop, the occupation must end. We plead with our leaders. You may look at this as a way to gain support and gain popularity. I don't want to accuse you of that. You may consider this a humanitarian issue of supporting the Jews. We plead with you. We are children of people who died in Auschwitz. Almost all our communities. My grandparents were killed in Auschwitz. My father escaped from Hungary when the Nazis came in. We are all children of survivors. We know what it means to be Jewish. Why don't you hear the voices of the ones who are upholding their religion? How could you buy into this fraud, into this hypocrisy? It's out there for anybody to see. What about the history before Zionism, where we were living in Iraq, in Iran, in Egypt, in Tunisia, in Morocco, and so forth? It's not a question, it's a fact. We enjoyed each other's friendship. We flourished together. What has changed? Why are people so simple-minded? What has changed? One issue came about, and that is called nationalism of Zionism. Judaism is subservience to God. Zionism is a movement of a little over 100 years, a transformation from religion, subservience to God, to pure nationalism, a direct rebellion against the laws of the Torah, against the rule of God. It's an hypocrisy. It's a travesty. It is unacceptable, and since the advent of Zionism, there is hate and rivers of blood. Why doesn't the world see this? Where are the politicians who are looking and realizing that it's the Almighty who gave them the gift of being leaders, and that if they want to be successful, they should do what is righteous and just? How many reporters, how many children are killed in Gaza this last year alone? We cannot be silent. We dare not be silent. Ultimately, the Almighty will bring an end, just as the Greek Empire and the Roman Empire and the South African apartheid ended, and the USSR, where they sent people to Siberia, millions of people were killed for the religion. That all ended when it was etched in stone, and nobody could have believed it would end. And USSR stopped without bloodshed. And nobody would believe that in South Africa we could live in peace. But we can, and we are. This will end. The Almighty, with His compassion, will bring an end to this apartheid, to this crime, to this terrible crime, this rebellion against God that the anti-Semitic if you stand with the occupation.
Yes.
You are an anti-Semite if you are a Zionist.
Yes.
You are an anti-Semite if you wave the Israeli flag. It's my blood, the religious Jewish communities that are suffering under their hands, and other Jews also. They are the real anti-Semites. Let's stop being apologetic. Let's stand up there and be on the offense. Elbi ma Palestine, Elbi ma Gaza. Our hearts are with you, Palestine. And with God's help, we will not be silenced. We plead and urge, don't call this a Jewish state. That is just playing into the hands of the Zionists so they can accuse you of being anti-Semitic. Call it what it is. A Zionist state of Israel. Vile to say out of the mouth, but that's what it is. A rebellion against God. We plead with everybody to stand up, and we plead with our Jewish brethren, do not be intimidated. Yes, you are being attacked and vilified and ridiculed, and it's uncomfortable. But God wants us to speak up as our rabbis pleaded with us, and thank God around the world, we are, some of us, taking the courage and speaking out, and many who don't have the courage, we plead with you, do stand up. And let us all pray to God that He should bring with His compassion a speedy, peaceful end to this occupation, its entirety, a free Palestine, a free Palestine. Viva, viva Palestina!
Viva, viva Palestina!
God help sooner nowadays, and ultimately for what we all pray for, the revelation of God's glory, where all humanity will serve God in harmony once again. And we as Jews will be able to say to the Palestinian people, here is your land, here is your freedom. We hope for that day soon in our life. Let us all say, Judaism, yes. Zionism, no.
Judaism, yes. Zionism, no.
The state of Israel must go.
The state of Israel must go.
Judaism, yes. Zionism, no.
Judaism, yes. Zionism, no.
The state of Israel has to go.
The state of Israel has to go.
1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Zionism no more.
Zionism no more.
5, 6, 7, 8.
5, 6, 7, 8.
Israel is not a Jewish state.
Israel is not a Jewish state.
1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Zionism no more.
Zionism no more.
5, 6, 7, 8.
5, 6, 7, 8.
Israel is not a Jewish state.
Israel is not a Jewish state.
1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Israel no more.
Israel no more.
5, 6, 7, 8.
5, 6, 7, 8.
End the killing and the hate.
End the killing and the hate.
Free, free Palestine.
Free, free Palestine.
Free, free Palestine.
Free, free Palestine.
Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. Brother is coming all the way from New York today to be with us.